Hey, this is Don Grothoff with Focus Healthy Family, and this week we are running the Best of 2024 with the Focus Healthy Family podcast, and you'll get a chance to see some of our best sessions and some of our best interviews for the week. And just hold on now because I'm going to send you to one now. Take care.
I remember my parents took me and my brother, who's 3 years older than me, to Disney World. And there was big excitement about riding Space Mountain. And as we're waiting in line, a very long line, this is even back in the day, the lines were crazy long. And my brother started having second thoughts about wanting to go on this ride because it's in the dark. You don't really know what you're going to be experiencing. And so he was smart enough at the age. I don't remember exactly how old I was. I would probably somewhere around 6 or 7. And again, my brother's 3 years older. So he was, I guess, a good reader. And he read a sign that said, "You cannot go on this ride if you're pregnant." And he started screaming, "I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant." And then they graciously came and took us out some other way that you get out of the ride line and go back to safe land. So I definitely remember that as a pivotal moment in my childhood, knowing that my brother thought he could be pregnant.
Well, hello.
Anything to get out of a ride,
Exactly.
out
That
of fear.
anxiety hit, and it was, I'm going to grasp at straws.
Hello, this is Gina
And this is Don.
with Focused Healthy Family. And this is podcast number 130. And we have the honor of speaking with one of my best friends, Kimberly Lipsky Weidman, who has written this amazing book called Love Is. She wrote it a long time ago and had it published recently. And I'm just very excited to have her here and to be able to talk about her book. Um, and welcome.
Thank you both so much for the invitation. I'm so excited to, anytime I get to see you is a good thing, Gina, first of all, and then you too, of course, Don.
Why,
And
yes.
and then that you cared enough about the book and were moved enough about the story that you wanted me to be part of your podcast. So thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, I
I thought it was great. I read, yeah, I mean, it's simple read, but just the illustrations and the story behind it and the message behind it to me was awesome.
yeah, I saw your link and of the podcast. You were interviewed by somebody, and I apologize, I forget the name. We can share that. But I listened to that podcast and I'm like, oh my God,
And
it's hanging out with my friend from college in my car. And then I learned some things I didn't know about you. And it was just so fun. And like, Don, you got to listen to this podcast. And I'm like, oh, we got to interview her for our podcast. So, yeah, it was like I had however long the podcast was. I had you there in my car as I was driving. So,
Anytime you can just call. We can always talk too. Then you can find out more things than you really want to know.
isn't it funny that you graduate so many years ago, and we went many years without getting together because I moved so far away, and then I went up for the 30-year reunion, and finally caught up with you, and then it takes seeing your media, social media post about your book to be like, we need to connect again. Life
There
is
are some good things about social media. It's a blessing and a curse, and this is definitely a blessing that, it brings us together again. So that's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, it's keeping in touch with family. I get to see my nieces and nephews, grow up and what they're going through and kind of keeping in touch in a general sense with them. So that's great.
Mhm.
so tell us, Kimberly, and this book, and tell us when you wrote it, how it came to be.
Sure. So we're going to go back to 1977, I believe, is when I actually wrote it, although I'll explain a little bit more with that. So I was in third grade, and I lived in the Lehigh Valley at the time. I went to a school called Muhlenberg Elementary School. And I do have the distinct memory of walking in back in the day when we had, chalkboards at the front of a classroom, and the words "love is" written at the front of the classroom, and the teacher saying she wanted us to write an essay about what love meant to us. So I have that memory. What I didn't know at the time was that it was part of an Allentown School District wide contest. And this, where my category was kindergarten to third graders. And so fast forward a little bit, and we're into January 1978, and I remember walking into the school, and one of my friends said to me, your essay won honorable mention for all of the kindergarten to third graders throughout the Allentown School District. And I was like, oh, that's great. Like, again, you're a kid, you're doing an assignment, you don't really realize. And then actually, I forget exactly how I found out. Well, it was in the newspaper, and I'm sure there was some other way, but I actually had won first place for the story, which again is an even more exciting honor to be. So my mom, being a good mom, kept all those, drawings and things that you write and all those kind of achievements that you have when you're in elementary school. And she kept them. And so when I moved out to my first apartment, she actually framed the original essay for me and gave it to me. And it always kept it front and center then at that point. And I always pictured it being a children's picture book. And so, and again, this is going back, obviously, my first apartment, I was somewhere in my 20s. And now everybody has a children's book. But the thought, if I could have pulled it off back then, it would have been more novel. But I always had a vision for that first spread, but I just didn't know how I was going to bring the rest of the story to life. And also just finding an illustrator was a bit of a process. And, we can talk about that if you'd like. But anyway, that's kind of how it came to be, was kind of this childhood thing that was always front and center and always a dream. And then from there.
Yes. And
So
Kimberly,
what triggered you into wanting to go ahead and then publish it?
So what finally was the deciding element? So in March of 2021, my very healthy father, he's 77, he was in the gym all the time prior to COVID. Obviously, COVID put a wrinkle in that, but he contracted COVID and ended up passing away very unexpectedly. And I always had that thought, God forbid my parents got COVID, they were so healthy, they'll be fine. And my dad wasn't fine. So when he passed away, I just started thinking about his legacy. And then I just started thinking about my own mortality. And I don't have any children. Me and my husband, we don't have children. And I thought, I'm going to leave the face of this earth and no one's going to ever remember. And I thought, maybe it's the book. And, our world can be crazy at times. And I thought, love is something we need more of. And it's such a sweet, innocent story, the idea of what love is through the eyes of an 8-year-old, that I thought I need to find an illustrator. I started my own company because I wanted to go completely legit with this. So my own publishing company, and that's what kind of got me on the road to making this dream come true.
yeah, it's kind of amazing how it worked
I was
out.
just noticing that you have it dedicated to mom and dad for everything. There's no T in it, or so everything. What I'm kind of curious about
So,
that.
so I actually have a picture of the original essay in the back of the book as well. And the on that original essay, I essentially made a typo. And I wrote love is evering. And it wasn't the intention, but it's how it was. And so the dedication is a little bit of a nod, especially because my entire career I've been in marketing, I've been a copywriter. So the fact that I had a mistake, I'm like, I just got to kind of accentuate that and kind of throw it out there in part of my dedication to my parents.
Yeah, I love that because it's the authenticity, because you wrote this as an 8-year-old, and just, I love embracing imperfection. And I just think it makes it so much real. I mean, I've heard you talk about this book with the other podcast, but I'm speechless.
Wow. That's something in itself.
Well, what I'll say about Gina, just playing off what you said about authenticity,
Yes.
when I was debating about, and this has been over many, many years, I thought of making this a children's book. I met with an author I had met through a book club. We read her book and she came and we got together to talk about writing. And I told her about the story and she read it and she's like, it's great. What about if you develop the characters and, who is this man that's in the story and develop his character? And I thought about it. And then I thought, but how am I ever going to capture the innocence of an 8-year-old when I'm now, well, at the time I was talking to her, I was in my 40s. And I thought, it's just going to ruin it. And I thought, I just want to leave it pure exactly as I wrote it and go with that. And that's why the typo is in there. And then there's also this play through the book where as you go through the journey of discovering what love is, this repetitive word of then. Something happened, then this, something happened, then this. And as an adult and working with the illustrator, I was like, these thens are annoying me. As a writer, I wouldn't keep repeating the same word that's kind of a throwaway word. And then as I was talking with him, I realized, but how do parents talk with their children? Do your homework, then we'll go out for ice cream. Do this, then we'll go, like kind of that reward system. And when I looked at it that way, I thought, okay, again, as an 8-year-old, I'm kind of parroting some of the things I'm hearing at home. And so I learned to embrace that, which I found kind of annoying as a writer today. But again, going back to that authenticity, and that's how I told the story back then, and I wanted to be true to that, which is also why I started my own publishing company so that I could retain that total control over it and bring it to life in the way that I wanted.
I've got to back up a little because I remember in college you had a desire to be a screenwriter. Um, and I really don't even know if you've written other books. I know you've been busy in the publishing world.
Yeah, so the screenwriting thing, I don't know if I think you would have known this part, but because I was still in school at the time, but I did go out to LA. My one professor, Professor Severide, he had some connections out in LA, and I went out there and stayed actually, I can't believe this, with some strange man. The fact that my parents even allowed this, they were not like the most like go out there into the world little girl, but they were on board with this, and my professor knew the gentleman I stayed with, so I guess he kind of had vetted him on my behalf. I met with a screenwriter. I went to some of the studios out there, and then I had applied to UCLA Film School. And I believe at the time they only let in like 8 people, maybe. And so I submitted a feature-length screenplay, which was my senior project to graduate.
Right.
And I guess, that didn't make the cut. But, I think of that. I go, oh my God, I can't believe I applied to UCLA Film School. If I'd gotten in, what would my life have been? It's just so interesting to contemplate. And then in terms of what I've been writing since, so I fell into more corporate writing. So I worked for some ad agencies and did copywriting and bringing, brands to life and kind of telling the brand stories. And then just your general business writing when you work in a marketing department and presentations and speeches for CEOs and that kind of thing. And then I would still do a little bit of creative writing here and there. I was big into poetry for the longest time. So certainly when I was younger and you have more angst, I guess as I got happier in life, I wasn't as inspired to write it. Although I have gone back a little bit now and I am doing a little bit more poetry. I started a young adult book. Again, never brought it to fruition and started a couple of novels. But there's definitely one I have my brain noodling around. It's going to be a fictionalized story of my husband's life because it's an incredible life and I think would inspire a lot of people. But that's going to be my big project. I am also thinking of doing some more children's books. The tricky part is just the whole illustrator side of things and finding an illustrator and working with them. I'm going to see if I can maybe try to illustrate my own, which is
Oh,
its own
wow.
challenge. So we'll see. So many ideas. I need to just commit to doing one and start getting it done.
So is the illustrator that you use for the book, is he not uh, up to doing more for you?
Um, yeah, I think it was a great collaboration for this particular book. I mean, he really did bring it to life. I know he has gone on, he's illustrated another children's book. I think he has his own stories that he wants to work on and do.
Um,
But I am
Tell us how you found him, because like, when you said that you were talking to that other whoever you talked to said about bringing the characters more to life, and you wanted to keep the story true, the pictures certainly, bring it all to life. So tell us how you found the illustrator for that.
yeah, so interest. I mentioned obviously I've been in marketing my entire career. I have worked with a lot of graphic designers over the years and had approached them about doing the book. And the timing was never right. It was, oh, well, I'm just starting my family, or oh, I'm just getting married. I'm so busy, and no one had time. So when I made the commitment after my father had passed away, I put an appeal out on LinkedIn. So, social media for professionals, right? And it's all about networking. And I said, I had this story and I want to find an illustrator. Let me know what you think. My boss at the time, his daughter, she is an illustrator in New York City, but she's an illustrator in New York City and a little bit busy. And then a gentleman reached out to me who had actually, and this is the interesting thing about life and timing. In my marketing roles, I used to lead the New Holland agricultural marketing team. And this gentleman, Manny Regas, the illustrator in my book, he had reached out when I was in charge of the brand and said, I used to do work for New Holland. I'd love to do more work with the brand. And I looked at his website and it just wasn't the direction where I was looking to take the brand. It wasn't, his style of design wasn't right. So we never met. I think I got back to him and just said it didn't work or whatever, the style wasn't right. He reached out on my LinkedIn and said, I can do this. And I looked at his portfolio online again. And now I was looking at it through the eyes of bringing the story to life in his illustrations. And when I saw his illustrations, I was like, I think this might be the person. And then I told him my vision for the first spread, and he did that on spec. And then as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's it. And it was a true copywriter. I think of myself as a copywriter and artist collaboration. We got together at a local restaurant. He lives in Nazareth. Gina, you would know Nazareth. And
Okay.
we got together at a restaurant and we started talking about each line of the story and how we could visualize it and bring it to life. So it was a great collaboration to do that.
Well, it's amazing that you found him on LinkedIn. I mean, he could have been anywhere, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah, that he was local. I know.
is
So
that
it
that
worked out.
been more personal to be there in person, to be able to talk about it, because that's something that's kind of rare these days, is being able to get together in person with somebody. But I can only
So
imagine how exciting that was to kind of bring it to life. As someone who's had different story ideas, I started a children's book years ago and went to a book club, or a writing group club. And I didn't realize you don't share your first draft. And I got all this feedback, and some of it wasn't presented in a very positive way. And it kind of like shut me down a little bit. But it sits in a folder somewhere, and you never know. I might go back to it at some point. But
Us to about it and collaborate with.
well,
Here,
Kimberly, an interesting story. And I hope the Crayola.
yes.
Gina was going to write a book, and it had to do with crayons. It was
Okay.
about crayons coming to life or something like that. You were talking
Oh,
with Harrison, I think.
the kid jumps in the kid finds himself in a box of crayons,
Yeah,
and travels in time.
and you were interested in learning more about Crayola and Binney and Smith and all the developers of it. And I uh, I had seen the granddaughter of one of them. I think it Binney was on. I think it was on Oprah,
Oprah. Yeah, it was Oprah.
and so I didn't tell her about it, but I I contacted Oprah, and I also heard she was talking at Purdue University, and so I emailed up to Purdue
And this is back,
and just said, "What's that?"
this is like 20 years ago.
Yeah, and didn't really think about it. I meditated on it. I was doing this kind of meditation of, wouldn't it be great to have her contact us, And I don't know, I think a month or two went by, and one Sunday we were coming home from church, and that's back in the day when we had a recorder from the phone, and there was a phone call on there, and I pressed it in, and it was her, and she said, "I hear you want to talk with me," and she left her number and all that, and
Oh
I
my
think you
gosh.
end up calling her
Yes,
and talking with
the
her.
granddaughter of one of either Benny or Smith, and I'm sure we have that written down somewhere. But yeah, talking about, because the Crayola factory was started there in Easton, um, right?
Pennsylvania.
Easton.
Yeah, Easton, Pennsylvania. Yep.
Yeah, so right, not far from where Lehigh Valley, where Kimberly and I grew up. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty exciting just kind of how he manifested that and just being able to talk to them about my story ideas because yeah, I had a lot of different ideas for it. And just I'm not sure if I like recorded things that she said, but it was
Yeah, I think you wrote them down. I remember she was so nervous.
Aw. Well, it's so funny you bring up Crayola because I had actually approached them recently about a partnership. So someone I used to work with at the morning call now works for Crayola. And I had reached out to see, just the local tie, any collaboration. And of course they do things on a much grander scale, a national scale. But if your manifestation powers are that good, Don, you can send Oprah my way or Reese's Book Club or Dolly's Imagination Library. Like they're all on my radar. Or my dream has always been to be on the Today Show. If you can make any of those happen, that would
All
be
right, well, let me
fantastic.
work on it. In fact, let me step aside here. Hold on a minute. No.
all right now, but
Well, how do you feel it has been received?
I think well, and I think one of the things, so I publish, at this point, I'm exclusively published through Amazon. Amazon just makes it easy for, a first-time author to get exposure and to get the book out there without having to buy 5,000 copies that sit in the garage and get all moldy and stuff. And the other great thing about Amazon is they are global. So the book has been sold not only in the US, but in Canada, in Italy, and Australia. And I know the book then got shipped to New Zealand from there. So that's kind of exciting to say that love is really everywhere. And it really is a global, message of love. So why not have global distribution, which is exciting that they can do that. And then, I mean, people say they love the story. What I hear a lot of times is, I can't believe you were 8 years old. You were really 8 years old when you wrote this story, which is, of course, the greatest compliment to think that people read it and go, how did you craft this story? And it be so good when you were 8. And so that is extremely flattering. And then the one additional thing that's really come out of it is a big part of talking about love is about making your dreams come true. This was a dream that I had for decades and never did anything with. Like we all say we want to do this, we all say we want to do that. And do we take the steps to do it? And with this, bringing the story to life really was, I'm going to do this. I'm going to find an illustrator. I'm going to start my LLC. I'm going to do this. Like I definitely, you just put one foot in front of the other, and then before you know it, you have that thing that has always been the dream, and you make it happen. And someone said to me the one time, remember this feeling, what it felt like to take the leap and take more leaps in life, which is an incredible thing. And then the other part of that that's come out of it by sharing more the dream part is people writing to me and saying, your story inspired me. I've always wanted to write music. I'm starting to write music now. Or children's books, of course, is I've always wanted to do like, what did you do? How did you get started? I'm going to do this too. So I've had people reach out and just say how it inspired them as adults to then go do the thing that they want to do. So it, the story is obviously something that's for children. I always say kind of newborn as well, like, or mommy to be, like, why wouldn't you want to be reading this while the kid's in your belly type of thing. But then the story does have appeal beyond it because of more the story, and the story is relayed in the book as well. So if someone doesn't hear this podcast or whatever, as they read the story to their child, or the child reads it, they can then see the story, and then maybe that's inspiring people I don't even know that haven't even reached out, which is just, that's kind of the amazing thing. Again, as someone with no children, if I can have that ripple in life, I think that's really incredible.
As a writer too, it's like if my words influence just one other person, it feels so worthwhile. And just, yeah, I just love that not only is the story amazing and so simple, but so real. And I think it speaks to the fact that children have kind of a closer knowing, I think, than we do. And they have such honesty and purity, and that we don't always stop to listen to them. And so when I think about that and these compliments you're getting, it's like, and obviously you are extremely talented, and not all kids are going to write a story that's going to come off this beautifully. And yet we need to stop and listen to kids more, because they have some things to say that might seem simple at the time and powerful, but obviously they recognized it when you won, the award for the essay, and you weren't even really trying to like win an essay. Like you said, you didn't
Right.
know you were entering a
It's
contest.
a full assignment.
And at 8, 9 years old, right? You wouldn't, that competition thing wasn't like fully in indoor,
Right. That's
massively.
not competitive in college for sure. No. But yeah, that's a neat thing too. So as part of doing this and writing this book, I've been going to elementary schools to share the story. And a full circle moment was I went back to the elementary school where I wrote the essay, and they did an assembly where there was two groups that came into the gym and sat down, and then I got to read the story to them and share the story. And the one thing that I tell the kids is, you're probably writing essays in your classroom later today or later this week. You can make that into a book and story. And that's the one thing that I think, kids today or anybody today, the ability to be able to publish what you want to get out in the world is so, it's just so easy these days.
Yeah.
Anybody can do it. It's really a little bit of self-education, perhaps, or finding someone to guide you along the way, and you can do it too. So the tools are out there. Like, as I said, with Amazon, you can have global distribution.
Yeah,
It's
it's amazing because, yeah, when I was coming up with my story, it was a good 20 years plus ago. So Amazon wasn't quite that, if it even was. But yeah, just the fact that, and then kids, they can write a story and they can have it turned into a book, like the powerfulness of that idea that they can actually do something like that. Just, kids need those opportunities to feel like they have the power to do something that they, because they're so dependent on adults for so many different things. So yeah, I just love that. And it must have given you chills to go back to your elementary school.
it,
And
it is. It's like one of those things you're like, oh my God, everything's so little. It's like, it seemed so big when you were in the school. So it really was. And my mom actually went with me. So that was neat to have her kind of be part of that as well.
sure.
So yeah, but I've been to quite a few schools. I plan to do more, and it's just so fun and rewarding to be able to share the story with the kids and get their questions. And I get everything really questions that you go, how is a 8, 9 year old? It's like, what's your next story going to be? Or what were you thinking when you did this? To who's your favorite female singer? And I go, wait, that's throwing me for a loop. Like they just ask, right? The kids, they just ask anything. Then it was, well, who's your favorite athlete? And I was like, oh my gosh, these kids are like keeping me on my toes. I just thought I had to talk about the book. Now I got to think of all these things, that their minds are just everywhere, which is so exciting to be around.
Yeah,
Well, th- one of the things that, as I talked to this about before, but this is written towards kids. That was kind of your audience. but it really fits anybody, any age really. And what I just, as I was thinking about it, I was thinking about this is going to be kind of might be a little off, but about Sesame Street. It was a children's show, but it was very entertaining and it fit adults just as well. I remember watching it, really enjoying it myself. And I think your book kind of falls in that place too of it's a children's book, but adult can read it and get a good message out of it. Because love is universal. Love it has really no age to it. So I think it's really neat the way you've put it out there, and I think, like I say, it fits all.
Yeah, thank you. You made me think of, I recently had done a book signing at a Barnes and Noble. Now, my book isn't available in Barnes and Noble today, but the local Barnes and Noble brought me in, and essentially it was a consignment
Wow.
deal, which was incredible of them. And when I was in there, people would come through and buy, and I was talking to them. And there was this woman, her name is Kim. She's got a fantastic name. And she bought it for herself because her friends came in then and they're like, why'd you buy this book? She's like, she just loved it. And that was exciting to your point, Don. And then there was another gentleman I met at a writing conference that I had gone to, and he has an adult son who has Down syndrome. And he's like, this book is where my son's at for his reading age. And so, he took a copy of the book home and then sent me a great photo of him and his son reading the book and said he learned a new word, which is knowledge. Either he didn't know the word or he never saw it in print, but he learned, then the word knowledge. So those kind of stories are incredible. So to your point, yeah, adults do like the story as well. And again, it's that simplicity of message and innocence of an 8-year-old kind of examining what love is.
And how colorful, it is. Like I work with people with dementia, and Don and I, I'm growing this business to help people caring for aging loved ones. And I've worked in geriatric care for so long, and my dad has dementia. And when you look at people with dementia, you're kind of looking at them developmentally, kind of reversing, so to speak, so that their brain can't process information, like a full adult, but more like, there's different stages that equate to different ages of young kids. And so I'm thinking about, just how bright and colorful it is, because sometimes people that are older have vision issues, simplicity of the message. I know when we visit with my dad, he has Parkinson's with dementia. And when we talk and we say too many things, like his brain can't take all that in. And he's able to kind of let us know it's overwhelming. And, like having a simple, a story like this, I could just see it everywhere, even in like nursing homes and places that I work. It's just kind of a connection, when people come to visit. I know my kids have asked me, what can we do if we visit grandpa? Because I can't understand him. And, they don't know what to say to him and what to do, but having things, like a book or something to share together can be a really good a connection way. And yeah, the message is just beautiful and amazing, and it speaks to you and your amazing mother. Kimberly has the best mother.
I agree. She's gonna love this part.
She's one of my favorite college friend moms.
Yeah, I was very fortunate with my parents for sure.
Yes, and just that she
Well, the
saved.
fact that she kept it, and all that, that says a
Yeah,
lot right there too.
yeah.
So, yeah, and it just, how beautiful it's, love, what love is. Your mom held on to the story because she knew how special it was and that she framed it for you, right? If she hadn't done that,
Oh yeah, it would have been lost, It would have
uh,
been lost. I certainly wasn't going to remember the story and how I wrote it or anything like that. So yeah,
Well,
I was very lucky.
well, you know what? And I would imagine I didn't know I mean, I think I've met your mom, but I don't know her real well, but I would imagine she's the one that instilled the idea of love into you in the first place.
Yes, and also love for reading. Although that
Yeah.
took me longer to adopt. I felt like I was a natural writer, but a terrible reader. But I'm better now. I've gotten better now because I took another leap and left corporate life recently. So now I have time to read and I'm really enjoying it. But yeah, she always read to us as children. So definitely, you know, I'm sure she helped build my ability to tell a story by reading me all those stories all the time.
Mhm. And just how beautiful that just, your father's passing inspired you to move forward with it. Just like you talked about a legacy and just, it's a testament obviously to him as well. Yes, both your parents are amazing. And
I was kind of curious as to, like, with your publishing company now, are you publishing for others? Have you done much of that? What's your business like?
As of now, I have not published anybody else. So I am thinking of it as the works that I want to create and kind of put out into the world, all inspired by this idea. So it's called KLJ Happiness for those who are just listening. For those who are watching on video, we've got it kind of up on the screen. But the KLJ stands for kindness, love, joy, and then of course happiness. And when I was thinking about just the things I want more of in life, and thinking of my parents, and especially the stories that I heard after my dad passed away about my dad's kindness for everyone. My parents lived in a high rise and my mom's still there, and we'd run into people and they'd be like, oh my gosh, I had a problem with my car and your dad came and helped me. Or, oh, my husband had fallen the one day and your dad lifted him up. And so it was like all these stories of kindness. Your dad was always smiling and joking and all that kind of stuff. So one of the things that I committed to when my dad passed away is kind of those random acts of kindness. And we had asked everybody, it was 2021, so we were kind of still in COVID a bit, but asked people to just, don't donate to anything. Well, they could donate, that's kind too, but really do an act of kindness for somebody else as a way to honor him. So he really inspired the idea of kindness being that first, initial in there, and that kind of inspired the company. And so my intention is, with other writing, I talk kind of a little bit about novels and poetry and children's books. There's some other books I'm thinking about writing, but all of them will always be for the betterment of society, right? Like, I know people like their horrors, and I don't want to put that kind of stuff into the world. Like I just want the good stuff. So the company is about doing that. It's about giving back. I want to do volunteerism. That's definitely on kind of my bucket list, that I want to be more active, which is giving of my time. And so the company is really just to kind of inspire and do all of that, and inspire hopefully others to kind of adopt this. Yeah, I want to live with more kindness and love, joy, and happiness in the world. And how can I, in my own unique way, do that? And it's this idea of that rippling. If we all start doing nicer things for each other, just even a compliment, they're few and far between anymore. I feel like, well, maybe it's because I was younger. Maybe I got more compliments back then. Now I don't. But not even about the way you look, just something nice. So if everybody could kind of do that, then wouldn't that lead to a much better world? So
Sure.
that's kind of the purpose behind the company.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like what listening to the interview, because I hadn't talked to you recently. We see each other on Facebook, and listening to the other interview that you did, and I'm like, this is why she was my favorite person in college, because there are these similar beliefs of, just everything you're talking about, and just how important that is, because if we don't care for each other, if we don't spread love and kindness, we're creating a messy, ugly place, and we don't want that for the future generations. And as a parent, and the work that Don and I have done working with parents with kids with anxiety and other special issues, but also now looking at kind of the whole family dynamic of, if you're caring for an aging loved one and you might still have kids of your own, and just juggling all this. And the work we do, it boils down to communication and how we talk to each other. And it boils down to how our relationship is with that person. And it brings it right, back to your story, because if the relationship matters most, then other things can fall into place much easier than worrying about getting things done, and, things that have to happen, and assignments that need to be done, or, things like that. But just building on that foundation of relationship and communication. So your book is just beautifully placed and amongst our business here of Focused Healthy Family.
Well,
Like
Kimberly, I think this here is your next client, by the way.
I think so. Yeah. It's funny because I had a couple of people ask about publishing other works. And again, they would all have to fit into kind of that whole vibe, which is, again, what you're saying and what you do. And yeah, so we'll see where the future kind of takes the company and my writing and all that stuff. So I'm having fun exploring all of that and what it can be.
I want to back up and ask you just one more question. When you, I mean, your mom framed it for you, and when you moved out on your own and you put it up in the frame, and like when you saw it, when she gave it to you, then like, had you seen it in a while? Was it kind of, do you remember when seeing
I
it when she gave it to you?
I don't remember. I think, probably I was just like thought it was the coolest thing that she did. And then actually, my former mother-in-law, she had cross-stitched the whole story for me too, which was kind of a really sweet thing. So so of course still have that as well. So it lives on in thread and fabric now too. So which I thought was, she knew how important it was to me. And gosh, that would have been probably 20 years before the book was published. She knew the story. I guess somehow got a copy of it, probably from my husband at the time. And that was an incredibly tender gift too. My mom kept it, and then my mother-in-law to have done that for me.
Or, and I just looking at your words that you wrote, as a young child and seeing it as an adult, I imagine that you probably don't have much memory of actually coming up with it, or like what memories do you have of writing the story?
Just that one of walking in and remember seeing "Love is" at the front of the classroom, because I think it was, what's this going to be? Because maybe I feel, and maybe I'm recreating the memory, but I don't know that we ever did that before. And again, now knowing that it was a contest, we probably never did, where we just came in and saw these big words at the front of the classroom. So that's all I really remember. And then just the hallway chatter about, you have honorable mention. And then it was, no, I had first place. Like, I remember all that stuff too, because I guess those are just like those like pivotal moments in childhood that you remember. It's like, oh, I won something. And
Right,
then,
right.
oh, I want it better. It's like kind of that thing.
All right, so I think you two need to share. I'd like to know, and I think it doesn't hurt to bring it up, how you two met. How did you guys get connected?
So I have, okay, let me just say first off, I have a terrible memory anymore. So I can blame it on age, or maybe it was the TBI. I don't know, but this is what I remember, which isn't
Right.
much. So I am a year ahead of you. Is that all right? And I moved to a different dorm. So Gina and I went to Elizabethtown College in Pennsylvania. And so I was a year ahead of her, and I had lived in one dorm. And then my roommate actually transferred to another college. So I had to get another roommate, and I moved dorms because my original dorm had no air conditioning, but Schlosser, did I say that right? Had air conditioning. So
Yes,
that's where I wanted to be. And then Gina was on the floor as well, right? So it was that's how our whole gang came together,
yes. So
right?
yes, yes. 'Cause I think, yeah, I remember. I guess weren't you living on the West Hall before you moved to the East Hall?
Think I was only in one, but again, really, I say to my husband, "You're so lucky. I'm like 50 first dates. Like every day with me, I'm like, oh, Joe, like look at all this wonderful stuff that you've done around the house." Like it's sad, but kind of true. So Gina, you're gonna have to fill in a lot more blanks for me.
I have a memory of Mary, our mutual friend that you were really good friends
Oh,
with.
yes.
You guys were in the same dorm freshman year, I believe.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember doing something, and that was when I remember first meeting you. And I just remember thinking, I like this person. Like, I really like her. And I really, I thought you lived on the other side of, the Schlesser had 3 floors and had an east and west. And I don't know why I thought you lived over there before you came to our side. I'm not sure. But I just remember like I met you and I'm like, oh, I like you. And then, yeah. And at some point, maybe you were already living there. I don't know. Memories are funny, right?
Yeah. And then I think we just all started hanging out. Like I just know when I look at my pictures from college, like you're in them, right? Like I don't remember how the friendship built, like brick by
I don't
brick.
think there were connections of, Anne was my roommate and
It's
she,
through love.
It's
she
through
loved,
love.
yeah.
Well, and then we also, when we were out of college, so our college was about an hour and a half-ish away from where, I grew up in Allentown. Gina was in Whitehall, which they're 20 minutes-ish apart. So in the summers, we would hang out too, especially when we were old enough to go out and
Well,
then
yeah.
that's where those stories will stop. But
Well, I had a high school college boyfriend that we broke up in my
yes,
senior year, and you were home working, I think, for the morning call. Was one of your first jobs out of college.
yeah.
Um, and I would go home because I didn't have a boyfriend anymore, and then my other friends had moved out off campus together, and I hadn't joined them, and I wish I had. And and so I would go home, and the two of us would hang out, and we'd go dancing at bars and things in the Allentown area. And we spent a lot more time together that year, even than I think we did. I mean, we were friends and we were part of a friend group, but we spent even more time together. Um, all the time I spent coming home. And I know it was tough when we'd spent so much time together and then I decided up and move away. But I remember you coming to visit when I was pregnant with our first child. And
Yes, and that you let me
The
bring my
surprise.
dog.
you
The
surprised.
surprise. Yeah.
Yes, yes, you brought your amazing dog that was is he a golden?
Yeah, Golden Oliver. I brought
Yeah,
Yeah.
all,
Oh, wow.
his
So
but
family.
now, Jeannie, you can say you are friends with a famous publisher,
there you
I
go.
she's a
you know,
published, she's the owner of a publishing company. She's a published author. She's
published author.
a
Yes. So
award-winning published author. The story was great.
It's amazing how you can fluff it up with some good marketing. It's like it's an award-winning story. I mean, it won an award when I was 8 years old, but still award-winning.
yes, of
But
course.
it is amazing, Kimberly, and it's just
An
so exciting.
Allentown bestseller.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just so exciting and fun that that's something we had in common as kids, and the creativity and the writing. I won't tell all the stories of how Kimberly used to steal my stuffed rabbit that was my favorite little thing, and like
Oh
hang
yeah.
him and hide him from me. Kimberly was quite the prankster. And I remember when I met Don and then you two guys met, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're too much alike. You both joke around.
Banter. Yeah.
um, um, but yeah, just that creativity that you've always had, and it's neat to just you got something, it's having it in print, something that you created, and it's just I aspire to that, and
You will do it.
you inspire me with this, and it's got me thinking, even bringing up because I'm doing a lot more nonfiction now, but thinking about that the story, the children's story that I started so many years ago, and I've always it's all on paper. I don't even have it in the computer. I don't think I hand wrote it.
Well, and some of the issues that you both work on, with the people who listen to you or that you work with, the such great ideas for books, to just
But
make it accessible and make it easy and oh, okay, I'm no different than other people, right? I just have this unique thing about me. So I think there's a lot you could do with children's books.
oh yeah, I
Great.
mean, this morning I was in a meeting and the lady I've known for a long time, Rita, um, she said to me, because I was telling her about Gina's dad being in the memory care and all that we were having to go through. And she said, "My gosh, you guys have been one after another, things going on, different, with the OCD, dealing with now dealing with their father. It's just been years of it, and Yeah, so there's a lot there we could we could write on probably very easily.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I used to had an aspiration. I've always being a writer was always something was kind of in the back of my mind. And when I moved to Whitehall, because I lived in the Pittsburgh area, I didn't have like many writing classes. I had an awesome English teacher in like sixth grade when I was in the Pittsburgh area school district. And I just, I had this interest in going into writing. And then I found myself in a school district that didn't, at least the teachers I had didn't focus on it. I had one awesome English teacher my junior year of high school. Um, but like the opportunity wasn't there to encourage me to keep writing. And um, so it was kind of like this thing that was always brewing inside me. And um, I'm losing my train of thought. Oh, but I used to have the idea when I first was working um, in the world as occupational therapist in a nursing home. And I guess when Harrison was born, my first child was born, I was trying to figure out ways to work from home. And I was like, I could write stories about like mysteries in nursing homes and just like crazy things that happen in a nursing home. And I've had so many ideas over the years, but yeah, now certainly with all the adventures we've been through with my father, because dementia, it's a challenging thing and it can be very amusing at times. And when you have someone that you're dealing with it and they do some bizarre things, you don't laugh at them, but you have to laugh at the story. And my dad has told me went before his dementia had gotten more severe, that he'd love to be able to help other people with what he's going through. So I kind of always feel like I have his blessing to share some of his challenges when I work with people. Especially people after having gone through surgery, even if they don't have dementia, if you go through anesthesia and pain meds and all this stuff, it can make you hallucinate. It can make you say and do crazy things. And my dad had back surgery, and with Parkinson's, you often have more of a reaction to that kind of stuff. And he had such a reaction, he thought they were out to kill him and get him. And he literally took a walker, a metal walker, and busted it through a window. I got a call at 4 in the morning to come to the nursing home. He was there for his rehab. And I thought the grass was going to be just, a little crack. No, there was pieces of glass on the floor. But like being able to tell that to patients who are telling me, oh, I was, my family said I was crazy and I did all these things. I'm like, I've got a story for you. And it just helps them to feel more at ease. Like, okay, when you go through surgery like this and go through anesthesia and medications, it can cause these things. So like, I feel like I'm always sharing stories as I, connecting with people, because that's what helps you build a relationship to be able to help motivate someone when they're going through rehabilitation services is that connection. So I guess even though I didn't pursue the writing professionally,
You're
It's
sharing
there.
stories that make the impact. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think about all the people and I want to just sit down and just the different people I've met and things are also, it's very it's just like I always say, I wish I had been writing down different things, the people I've worked with, just because I met some really neat and people over the years. But those they're still in my head somewhere, and I just
Well, we could go on for quite a long time. We probably need to at least wrap the this
so
up with,
Kimberly,
but
where can people learn more about you? We will share this on a link, but tell us where they can learn more about KLJ Happiness.
So I have a website that is the KLJ Happiness, Kindness, Love, Joy, to help remember that acronym. So kljhappiness.com tells a little bit about the story we talked about here. I also have a tab on there that's my upcoming book tour that's starting next week, actually in Ocean City, New Jersey. And then also I have news of things that I've done, donations to library and stuff like that. So if people kind of want to hear more backstory of what I've done to even inspire them if they have a book and what they could do with it, feel free to check that out. And then they can also, I have a link to where you can get the book on Amazon from my website, but people can also go directly to Amazon. You have to type in love is and at least Kimberly, ideally my full name, Kimberly Lipsky Weidman, to make sure the right one pops up. But it's available there as well. And like I said, it can be sent with Prime, which is great. So like if people already have their Prime shipping, it ships for free, and you can literally send it anywhere in the world as well. So or
Exciting.
order it from anywhere in the world where Amazon is, of course.
Right.
and
That's
we'll
a
have
great,
all that up
yeah, we'll share links to all
on the
that. Yeah.
podcast itself too. So
Great. I'm
Do you want to
also,
wrap it up, Gina? Because
I was
I'm
just,
in a
oh, sorry.
noisy place here.
Oh, sorry. I was also just going to quickly say, I also am on a LinkedIn for those who are on the professional site, and Facebook and Instagram. The handle on those are KLJ_happiness if people want to follow along on social as well.
Yeah, and if interested in pursuing publishing themselves, if they have a story that inspires like your story does, that they can reach out to you. Thank you for joining us on our podcast today. It's been an honor to talk to my wonderful friend Kimberly and to learn about her in the publishing world and her wonderful, wonderful book, Love Is. If you've enjoyed this, please share this podcast with anyone you know. There'll be links to the book, and it's a great Christmas gift or birthday gift to get for people. And find out more on our website at focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can see links to Kimberly's information. You can see links to other podcasts, other work that we do, the workshops that we're doing, Ask the OT, the several times a month call-in that we're doing to answer questions about caring for aging loved ones, and the consult work that I do. So you can learn all about that at Focused Healthy Family. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. And remember, how you speak to your children and your loved ones today shapes their future and yours.